Welcome to the Smashing the Infinity Mirror message and meditation. This is a communication from the unified field. If you want your reality to be unlimited, you have to stop asking it to tell you who you are. This message is a message of orientation. In other words, relating to what touch points you use to stabilize your knowing of yourself. Your orientation right now is mostly to and through what you encounter in reality. Because you are a co-creator of what you encounter, but are unaware of this, or are unaware of how you co-create, you end up in a recursive cycle of orientation. In other words, you have deeply held assumptions, expectations, and beliefs in your fields that are hidden from your conscious awareness, that are actively co-creating what is in front of you in reality. Because you are unaware of this, it will appear to you that reality continues to support the truthfulness of deeply held assumptions, expectations, and beliefs that you have. With this, you use your creations to try to orient and define yourself. This is the process that traps you in a recursive cycle that just reinforces your limitations. This means that your existence becomes like when you place two mirrors across from each other and end up with an infinite reflection, an infinity mirror. When you live in this way, you become the crucial part of the infinity mirror. Because of your unconsciousness, this also means that your co-creations become repetitive and boring. You continue to recreate what you've already observed over and over again because you are not aware of higher possibilities. This also means that because you are trying to know yourself through reality, that you will only ever know yourself through distortion. This is because the co-creator cannot know itself through its creations. When you try to know yourself through reality in its present form, which is heavily informed by separation consciousness, there are a myriad number of ways that this occurs. Experiences like superiority and inferiority, hierarchy, comparison, contrast, judgment, violence, victimhood. These are just some of the ways that an identity rooted in separation consciousness and the recursive loop tries to define its edges in separation consciousness. These are the processes that keep you trapped in the infinity mirror. And they can be sorted into broader categories of demands, dependencies, and agreements, all of which support reality as it currently is. Demands pull on you from the reality, demanding that you continue to act in a certain way, exist in a certain way, present a certain identity or image, and be limited to a small set of possibilities in any circumstance. Dependencies are the ways that you rely on the reality to tell you who you are. These could be your cumulative history, through relationships with others based on approval, disapproval, superiority, inferiority, and other means of comparison and contrast. Through successes, failures, achievements, acquisitions, outcomes, endpoints, and ownership. When you consider demands and dependencies, you may realize that it is these processes that form the recursive loop. And it can be helpful to reflect on how you might be experiencing these. As you go about your day, when and where do you feel pressured to present a certain identity or image? This is a demand. When and where do you ask the reality or others to confirm a certain identity or image for you? In other words, where and when do you rely on reality to tell you who you are? This is reality dependency. Another process that underlies the infinity mirror is agreement. Agreement is a process that works well in co-creation if you are a conscious participant. However, many agreements tend to lie at an unconscious level. And when this happens, you will find that agreements tend to underlie both demands and dependencies. And they exist as energetic structures which you unconsciously align to along with other people in order to meet the needs of demand and dependency and thus avoid instability and volatility. Agreements sit where demand and dependency meet. This is because where demand and dependency meet, agreements allow relationships to sit in a state of equilibrium and stability. By themselves, these aren't necessarily bad things, but when they are based in unconsciousness, they engender stagnation. Agreements artificially keep the peace, meaning they do not challenge either party to go deeper, as going deeper often produces instability, if not volatility. Agreements are not inherently bad or good. They have been used to create structure and coherence in the reality at the level of separation consciousness. And as mentioned before, they are a natural part of co-creation. As awareness lifts and more of your true essence manifests here, you learn to become accustomed to your true dynamic nature, which is constantly flowing. You learn that allowing this into your awareness gives you so much more than false stability and false peace that is predicated on limitation. When you make this shift, it illuminates how unconscious agreements are actually very limiting and ultimately anathema to the eternal, unlimited, flowing, true self. So you can see how demands, dependencies, and agreements are the underlying processes that lock you into the recursive loop. When you're locked into that loop and are cut off from awareness of your higher true nature, you will try to orient yourself to your co-creations in the reality. And because you actually are an unlimited, eternal being in connection, this is an incredibly unsatisfying, if not downright painful way to exist. It results in feeling as though you are in a constant state of need. This is because the creations of the co-creator could never tell the co-creator who and what they are. This is the infinity mirror in action. It's also helpful to understand that trying to know yourself through the reality is the primary generator of fear. This is because when you are trying to define yourself through the reality, through its demands, and through your dependency on it, it is like the ocean trying to know itself through the wave. The wave is a creation of the ocean. It is unstable and temporary. It is a very small, incomplete representation of the ocean. The ocean sits in its knowing of itself, in its experience of itself. The waves are just symptoms of its dynamic nature. This is very similar to how you operate as an expression of Source. What you observe and experience in reality, and even your personality self, are waves. You do best when you sit in the perspective of knowing the truth of who and what you are, a flowing expression of Source energy. Waves are points of interest, points of curiosity, not representations of who and what you really are. It's also worth noting that as your awareness starts to lift, it may become more common or more intense in your experience to have circumstances or people pressure you to conform to demands, dependencies, and agreements. This may come in the form of anxiety, anger, and volatility. It's also helpful to understand that this is not an act of malice. Anything that has come into manifestation in dense form has a deep impetus to survive and stabilize. In other words, the recursive loop wants to perpetuate, to continue to exist, to maintain its own coherence. This momentum is a part of the natural order that creates structure in denser forms of reality. The key here is to understand this as a natural process, not as a direct, personal threat to your evolution. So when you encounter those who vehemently, desperately want you to confirm their version of reality, the version of themselves that is all that they know, which is based in fear, you may feel a lot of pressure to support their version. You'll know you've anchored a higher, lighter tone when you no longer feel a pull in your fields to support them in this endeavor. No longer feel fear or anxiety arise in you as well. And once you reach this state, you may be surprised at the effect your presence in this frequency affects who or what you encounter. If you do feel disruption when somebody comes at you in this manner, just take a step back and observe what is happening within you. The observation can give you insight into ways that you may still be trying to know yourself through reality in its current form. In order to move beyond this, you have to learn how to see everything with new eyes, as well as develop a new orientation. New eyes come with a new foundational knowing and experience of life, a daily orientation grounded in the essence of all that is, instead of in separation consciousness. New eyes mean that you step into the manifestation of your true self in the reality, instead of supporting narrative or story and asking reality to confirm your story of yourself. It means that instead of continuing to relate to ideas of reality and all that it encompasses, you actually step into present moment awareness and experience what is happening outside of the prison of the mind. This foundational experience is grounded in the knowing of your existence as part of a whole, which is connection consciousness, while simultaneously being an individual expression of that whole, which is you in manifestation. When you lift your perspective, you will find that you will be able to hold both of these points of orientation in your awareness at the same time. However, you will find that the part of you living in connection consciousness will be in the driver's seat, because it is the part that holds the truth of your existence. When you are able to experience yourself in this way, you will also see all that you encounter in this way as well. This is how you smash the infinity mirror. It's also important to know that this is not about detachment or rejection of reality. This is about changing how you relate to reality. When you try to know yourself through reality, it is literally like the tail wagging the dog. It is also similar to the madness that you now see with people staring at themselves through their online portals all day. This habit is a microcosm of what we are experiencing in the reality itself when we do not know our true essence. If you look at people staring at themselves through the online portals all day, you may understand that this is resulting in a kind of mass psychosis. When you try to know yourself through a distorted mirror, whether that's your online presence or your unconscious existence in reality, you become further and further removed from awareness of your true essence. Your experience gets smaller and shallower and more predictable until it becomes maddening. It's also helpful to understand that your day-to-day reality right now is often structured around demands, dependencies, and unconscious agreements. Daily activities will often tend to reinforce old patterns, and you will find that you may regularly unconsciously orient yourself to them, which means that daily activities are constant opportunities for the practice of developing awareness. If you pay attention, you may notice that much of what you encounter on a daily basis likely has unconscious agreements active, even in how you relate to landscapes, houses, jobs. Just taking the opportunity to notice how you relate to these things can greatly expand your awareness. When you learn to lift your vantage point and to orient yourself to your connection consciousness, you will know yourself in a new way, and demands and dependencies and unconscious agreements will simply fall away. If you want your reality to be unlimited, you have to stop asking it to tell you who you are. Let the experience of reality wash over you. This is how you learn to create anew. This is how you free yourself to become aware of your true role as co-creator. You learn how to not be enslaved to your creations, and instead learn how to enjoy the ride as reality and your co-creations wash over you. This is really about freedom and the allowance of higher possibilities. Before we get started with this meditation, make sure you are in a space where you feel safe and in which you will be free from interruption. Pause the recording if you need to get into that kind of space. And now, close your eyes and attend to your breath. Just notice your breathing. Can you settle into your breath as an experience? Notice that your breath is continuous. It is a marker of the eternal now because it is in continual movement. Settle into the sensations of each part of the breath's cycle. Experience air coming into your lungs, the pause at the top of the inhale. Experience the air being exhaled and the pause at the end of the exhale. Enjoy this cycle for a moment. Notice that attending to your breath connects you more fully with your inner landscape, which only exists in the present moment. This is where your dependence and subservience to time, space, and the other limitations of this reality breaks down. This is where your awareness is going to sit for this meditation. If you wish, you can turn your attention to your supports who exist in a higher, more connected, more aware state of consciousness. The supports that are always with you. You may think of these as your guides, your angels, wise beings on the other side whose presence you feel reassured by, and loved ones who now exist outside of space and time. This is not complicated. It's just a matter of bringing your experience of them more fully into your conscious awareness. Ask them to support you in this practice today. Sense their presence flowing more fully into your awareness and experience. Along with this, you may feel a lightening of your space. Know that this will be maintained by your supports and your connected self throughout this meditation. Now let's allow more of your inner landscape into your awareness. Open your inner senses. Open your extra senses. Now, in your mind's eye, you see yourself sitting between two mirrors. One is in front of you, and one is in back of you. They are facing each other with you in the middle. As you look into the mirror in front of you, notice how the images go on to infinity. Consider what it might be like to try and orient yourself and know yourself through these images, and what it might be like to try to wrestle with those images through the mirror. See if you can sense the energy that is associated with this way of existing. How would you describe this energy? You might find it to be stringy, maybe even gooey. How does that energy move? Does it move at all? You might find it to be very dense and slow. Just let yourself observe this energy without trying to change it or wrestle with it. Know that this is a representation of how you normally interact with, orient to, and relate with reality. As you observe this, gently consider whether or not there might be other possibilities for your way of experiencing yourself, orienting yourself, and knowing reality. Just let yourself relax into this possibility. You may start to sense other possibilities for your way of experiencing reality and knowing yourself bubbling into your awareness. Just let those percolate. Don't worry about making them specific. Focus more on the energy. As you allow the energy of these other possibilities to come into the edges of your awareness, you notice a light coming from behind the mirror directly in front of you. As that light starts to brighten, you notice that you have a sledgehammer in your hand. If you would like to free yourself from this infinite loop and step into a new way of knowing yourself and a new relationship with reality, take the sledgehammer and smash the mirror directly in front of you. As you do this, both the mirror in front of you and behind you smash into thousands of pieces and disappear. As this happens, you feel that gooey, dense, slow energy disappear as well, and realize that the infinite recursive loop that you've been trapped in this reality has fallen away. Along with this, you feel a rush of energy, and you notice an open doorway of light that was behind and beyond the mirror in front of you. The light is now fully engulfing you. It feels very inviting. It feels exciting. You sense that if you go through this doorway, your entire vantage point on reality will shift. You will be aligning to a new way of orienting yourself, a new way of relating to reality, one in which you are fully aware of the greater part of you's role as co-creator in what you encounter, one in which you know that all that you encounter, including your personality self, are expressions of Source. When you know this, you fully accept who and what you are at all levels, as well as all that you encounter in the reality, because no matter what is presented to you, you know the truth of existence. When you're ready, walk through that doorway. As you walk through the doorway, you feel your vantage point shifting and lifting. You sense that there's still a part of you manifested in reality, but manifestation means something completely different to you now. You bring the full of your true connected self to bear on any situation. The true self that does not know itself through the reality anymore, because it's aware of the truth of its existence as being a part of the whole, of Source, and also aware of its unique expression in manifestation as your current incarnation. You can feel a sense of freedom and joy washing over you as you feel that you've finally broken free from the infinite mirror of separation consciousness. This is literally a new sense that you've stepped into. Know that you can call on this sense at any time by recalling the doorway and the light that you've encountered in this meditation. When you envision this doorway and light, you will immediately be oriented to it, and your perspective will be lifted. You will be reconnected and realigned with your connected self. You will be able to hold a broader, higher perspective of yourself and of reality that allows for awareness of your individual unique expression of Source, as well as your existence as a part of the whole. Sit with this realization for a minute. When you're ready, Ask that your supports in spirit linger with you for a bit, even as you come out of this meditation. Ask that they allow you to practice integrating this broader awareness, as well as the new senses that develop and that are sharpened as a result of your new orientation. Now offer a thank you to your supports. Take a deep breath. Move your fingers and toes. Rub your palms together and massage your face. Welcome your new awareness and way of orienting yourself as you slowly open your eyes. Thank you for participating in this message and meditation today.